Mm.
You must be missing Japan.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean the that picture I put right after I came back from Japan. I don't know, man. I'm not a big fan of Japan anymore. I mean, I'm still a fan, but it's what it is.
Well, inshallah, make it what you want it to be in the future.
Inshallah. Yeah. But the Japanese, I mean, we shouldn't forget that they're like the Germany of the East, so sometimes we forget that. But yeah, they're cool stuff that comes out from there. Yeah, because with all the things going on with the new prime minister and so on, it's it's interesting. Though I wouldn't say I'm surprised. Let me. Well, okay. So I think we can begin. I'll just let other people join in as they're coming. Let me tag everyone in here. Oops. Uh-oh. Yeah, let me just tag everyone so they know to join. I believe we were supposed to be off today, actually. But here you guys are. So that's too bad. We're gonna be off next week. I believe for Christmas, not that we celebrate it, but yeah, we're just gonna be off, and I think we'll resume in January. So okay. So let's start inshallah ta'ala. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Allahumma anfa'na bima 'allamtana wa zidna ilman ya Kareem ya Kareem. So we left off at we finished al-ilahiyat, remember? So al-ilahiyat refers to all of the matters related to Allah, to theology, to predestination, free will, creation, right? Eternality of the universe, contingency, all these things. These all fall under ilahiyat. So these are the matters related to God. And usually we said that this is the longest section of any type of theological text because this is the main brunt of the work that a theologian has to do in order to defend the idea that belief in God is a reasonable proposition and to show arguments from reason to that effect. Just a quick side note, whenever we look for a religion or pick a religion or whatever it may be, there's only there are two questions you can start off with. And the first question is like, is reason one of your considerations? Like, does the religion have to be reasonable? Does it have to conform to your reason in some capacity or another? And the second question is, does that religion or that worldview defend itself through reason? Now, the answer to the first question and the second question will determine which religions you can sort of narrow down to being true or false, right? And as far as I know, the only two religions that defend the corpus of their beliefs through reason, right? Through the use of reason and defending the effectiveness of reason and the and coming to conclusions from reason is Christianity and Islam. That's it, right? You might say Hinduism, you might say Buddhism, you might say the all of these other religions, they destroy the capacity of reason. Their entire philosophical worldview is to undermine reason, right? For example, the Buddhists, they have paraconsistent logic, which means that a logic that allows for contradiction, and also the idea that human experience is not actually real, right? It's illusory, it's not real, right? And the same thing with Hinduism. Okay, so if you talk to a Hindu about, this belief that you have, this is a clear contradiction, right? How can you believe in multiple gods? And even if you can write a mathematical equation that shows the contradiction to them, well, they'll say, so what? Right? It's not a big deal, right? But contradictions are, this is just how it goes, right? Um, so the only two religions that really defend their beliefs through the use of reason and reasoned argument and this type of theology and what we call uh, apologetics, right? It's not apologizing, it's just a word, right? Which is taking objections and responding to them, okay? And any type of new objection that comes up, you try to find within the sources of your religion. It could be an objection in science, it could be an objection in psychology, it could be an objection in natural philosophy, wherever it is, right? So this is why they used to call theology the queen of the sciences, because every other science is dependent on theology, because you need theology to understand all the sciences, how they all fit together, because you need to be able to answer the inconsistencies that come up, right? And as far as I know, Christianity and Islam are the only two religion that really do this, right? And for myself, me personally, Christian belief is built on a contradiction, so I can't accept it. Okay, so even if, and Aquinas says this very clearly. He says that the incarnation, right, God becoming man, this cannot be proven through reason. And that we only believe this because of revelation. Okay. And now, is that true? Like, does the Christian revelation support the incarnation? No, it doesn't. Right? There are many readings of the Christian scripture you can do that does not support the incarnation and the divinity of Christ and things of that nature. And the proof of that are the early Christian sects, okay, who didn't believe in any of this stuff. So that's just a side note, a very interesting thing for us to understand. Um, it really comes down to Christianity and Islam at the end of the day. You might be wondering, Judaism. Well, Judaism will tell you that none of you can reason anyway because all of you are goyim, okay? You are Gentiles. So none of you have the capacity to reason to begin with, okay? So we don't even need to explore that. Unless you are born a Jew, okay? So unless you were born a Jew, we'd have a different discussion, but I don't think any of us have any Jewish lineage. So according to them, we don't have intellect to begin with, okay? We have an animal soul. So that that's a different discussion. Okay. So now we move on to the matters concerning prophets, nubuwat. Okay, nubuwat. And prophets, prophetology in Islam is incredibly simple. And sometimes like you can find parallels to prophetology in other religions like Hinduism, like Buddhism, the Bodh Shiva, okay? So this is a manifestation of the Buddha in different times of history, right? Or, the Avatar in Hinduism. But in our religion, prophets are not sort of manifestations of God in the sense that they are God in human flesh. Prophets are messengers of God. Prophets convey the message of God to humanity and to uplift humanity from the state that they're currently in and to guide them towards what is best for them and to bring order and harmony to human society. This is the nature of the prophets, right? They come into a society that is filled with disorder and disharmony and oppression and disbelief. And the root of all of this chaos is disbelief, right? And they attack disbelief, they win against disbelief, and then they reorder society to be harmonious. And this is what happened with the prophetic community of Medina. There's a difference between Nabi, right? Just a regular prophet, and the Rasul, right? A Rasul. It's not a condition that every prophet has to succeed in their mission. Okay? A Nabi, there can be times where a Nabi he doesn't convince anyone. No one believes in him, right? And he's killed. even. Okay, there are many prophets in the Old Testament and other places where they're killed. Uh, and so you could say they're not very successful in their mission or whatever it may be the case, right? But a Rasul of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he is guaranteed success. He's guaranteed success either by conquest, right? Or by the intervention of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directly in Allah punishing the evildoers. So the as we know in the Quran, when the truth is shown to them, when Allah reveals Himself to humankind, mankind no longer has any excuse. Okay? Everything worships Allah whether they like it or not. It's just apparently we get to choose that choice, right? Apparently we just give me a second, please. Okay, sorry guys, I'm back. Yeah, so as we were saying, prophets, right? There's only can you hear now, Sister Deborah?
Yes, thank you. I thought it was my service.
Oh, okay,
Alhamdulillah, I'm
okay.
hearing now.
No,
Thank
I
you.
had to step out for a tiny bit.
Okay, thanks.
Um, okay, so as we were saying, right, there's an apparent choice in the world which we get to choose between following, acknowledging reality, which is that Allah exists and we have to worship Him, or not acknowledging reality. There's an apparent choice in the world. And the consequences of not acknowledging that reality doesn't immediately show up. Okay? In other areas of life, that reality shows up immediately. Like if you drive your car off of a cliff, you're gonna get hurt. You're gonna die, right? But if you disbelieve in God, there doesn't seem to be an immediate consequence of that action. Because again, that is denying reality. That's like saying, oh, I can just drive the car off of the cliff, nothing will happen, right? But in the afterlife, there's no way of denying reality. Once the proof is sent to a people, which are miracles, mu'jizat, right, that are given by the prophets, once these clear proofs are sent to the point where no reasonable human being can deny that Allah exists, that you have to worship Him, and you have to change your life, then at that point either you accept or you're punished, right? You're punished just in the hereafter. There's only two realities now. You can't pick between this ambivalent state. In the hereafter, things are clear, 100% clear. It's either God or not God. That's it, right? You're either with God in heaven or you're not with God and you're in hell. There's only two realities, right? So when the prophets come, they come, the Rasul. The Rasul is he's aided with miracles. The Nabi might not be aided with miracles. Of course, the Nabi have miracles all the time, but the Rasul is always aided with miracles, mu'jizat, which overwhelms the people of his time. And they can't replicate them and they can't explain them. So when the Rasul says, this miracle is from God, the one God, you have to worship him, they are compelled to accept that proof, right? Mu'jiza, miracle comes from ajaz, like making somebody impotent, powerless, right? So when Musa alayhi salam, he battles the expert magicians, and the magicians know their craft like inside and out, and they're able to move their staffs in a way that look like snakes, right? Or to do some tricks, whatever it may be, what they did, maybe dark magic, black magic, whatever it is, for the staff to look like snakes. But Musa as some staff turned into an actual snake, and it ate their staff, right? So these magicians understood that, okay, this is beyond the realm of human possibility at this point. This is not, we're not dealing in the same dimension. And that's why they immediately convert to Islam. They and they're willing to be killed by Pharaoh. They say, okay, go ahead, you can crucify us, but this is not the doing of human beings. So a mu'jiza overpowers. And if someone rejects the mu'jiza, a society rejects the mu'jiza, they're punished. So the Rasul always wins, right? This is the difference between a Nabi and a Rasul. A Rasul always wins. Okay, so the Prophet, he won. The message of Islam is successful. Musa alayhi salam, he defeated Pharaoh, right? Ibrahim alayhi salam, he defeated Namrud. Nuh alayhi salam, his community did not believe in him. They're all destroyed except for his followers, right? So a Rasul is always victorious, right? So that's the difference between a Nabi and a Rasul. Another difference between Nabi and Rasul is that they're tasked with tabligh. Can you guys hear me, by the way? You can,
Yes,
right?
we can.
Okay,
Yes, we
okay. So another difference between Nabi and Rasul is that a Rasul is tasked with doing public da'wah. They must do public da'wah. They can't just be in their home due to danger or something like this or whatever it may be. Okay? So they must go out in public. Whereas the Nabi has a choice, right? Nabi, like he can teach in private, he can sort of not he can choose not to be a public figure, right? This is why, some scholars have said that, even females can be nabi, okay? So because they don't necessarily have to go in public and face opposition and deliver the message or lead armies and this and that. So what's stopping a woman from being a nabi? For example, if you look at Sayyidah Maryam alayhi salam, an angel speaks to her and she gets revelation from God in a certain way. So, some people have used this argument, but the correct opinion seems to be that Nabi and Rasul both have to be with men. Okay? At least from the data that we have in the Quran, that this is most of them are men. So, a Rasul, uh, now, does a Rasul know that things will work out in the end? Like, does he, like in Mecca, for example, the Prophet, does can he see the future and be like, oh, I'm gonna come into Mecca, so I don't need to worry? Like, can he see the future from, let's say, 2 years into his prophecy? Can he see the future? What do you guys think? Like, does he know that he's not gonna die and his friends aren't gonna die and everything's gonna work out fine and hero's journey, all of that? What do you guys think?
No.
No. This is the uh uh he only has the trust in Allah, the tawakkul. Yes, he does know in a certain sense because of the Quran. The Quran, like Brother Abdul Razak said, the Quran comes to comfort him and to tell him, don't worry. Just like Musa alayhi salam, he went through these difficulties. He was thrown into the river. The Pharaoh was trying to kill him, and we used him against Pharaoh, right? Just like Musa salam killed somebody, he had to run away accidentally, and people were chasing him, and he actually returned to Egypt, right? Just like that, you will return to Mecca as well, right? Don't worry, don't do this, don't worry, don't kill yourself out of worry, right? So as the Prophet ﷺ gains more knowledge and becomes and progresses in his life, the sphere of his knowledge widens and increases and increases until like he sees the future with certainty, ayn al-yaqeen. Okay, to the point that there's a time in Medina where the Prophet ﷺ gets up and he does this is a hadith in Sahih Muslim, I believe, that he gives a sermon and he talks to the Sahaba from morning all the way to dusk, right? All the way to evening, mentioning every single calamity that the Ummah is going to face, every single thing that's going to happen, right? As if he's seeing it. He's like, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this person will die, this person will die, right? This is going to happen. And then Dajjal will come, and then this will happen, and this will happen, right? And it was so long that the Sahaba actually forgot. The person who's narrating this hadith, he forgot most of it, and he just remembers the part about the Dajjal. Okay? And so as the process and progresses in his prophethood, Allah gives him more and more like shahadi. We say shahadi knowledge, right? Like he's able to actually just see it. But at the beginning, the Prophet has to do tawakkul of Allah. Okay, and this is part of the perfection of his iman, that he believes in what the Quran sends down, his complete trust in it. Knows the ultimate result, but not, yeah, exactly. Exactly. He doesn't know the specific path. Like, how does he, okay, the Quraysh are persecuting me. Now, what do I do now? Okay, I lost the help of my tribe. What do I do now? I don't know, right? He has to think of a strategy. So, okay, we're surrounded by the Quraysh, the Jewish tribes betrayed us. They're gonna flood in to Medina right now. We're kind of toast in the Battle of the Trench. What do we do, right? The Prophet has an answer in that immediate situation? No, he doesn't know. He has tawakkul, right? He has tawakkul, he has strategy, he's employing al-asbab. Okay? So the reason I mention this is to show you that the Prophet is not some robot from the beginning of Revelation, and he just, this robot with all of the information, and he's just sort of clicking the dots, right? And oh, his Khadija radiallahu anh died, and Abu Talib died. Minor detail, right? Year of sadness. There's no such thing as year of sadness. Minor detail. Prophets can never be sad, right? You can never be sad if you have tawakkul of Allah. How dare you say the Prophet was sad? I mean, the Prophet is not a robot, right? I mean, the perfection of his iman is in his ability to trust the plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? He knows that Allah aids Rasul, and he knows that even if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, maybe he will die, maybe the Prophet will die. The Prophet doesn't know if he's gonna live or die like that, right? But he knows his mission will be successful either way. He has perfect belief of that. Um, so that's why, for example, in Surah Al Imran, if I remember correctly, Brother Abrazak, you can correct me if I'm wrong, right? وكأي Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وكأي من نبي قاتل معه ربيون كثيرا وهنوا لما أصابهم في سبيل الله وما ضعفوا وما استكانوا. So in the battle of Uhud, they thought that the Prophet ﷺ died, right? And there was chaos. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the verses to tell them, well, if this Rasul dies, does that mean you're going to go back on your heels and worship idols and give up on the truth, right? So just to show us that, okay, maybe it is a possibility that he might die, right? So what? The truth is the truth, right? And you have to carry that message forward. But as we said before, Rasul are always aided by Allah to fulfill their mission. So either their people are destroyed if they reject it and the believers are saved, or their people all convert, which is what happened in the final message. Okay? So this is why the Prophet says, Umirtu an uqatil an-nas. I have been commanded to fight the people hatta an yashhadu la ilaha illallah, until they believe in la ilaha illallah. Okay? He's been commanded to fight. If you don't accept the process, he shows you the miracle. This is the miracle from God, and you don't accept it. The only situation right now is for the punishment of Allah to come to you. And the way of the punishment of Allah to come to you is you're forced, right? Is you're forced. And this seems a little radical, right? But how can we when the Prophet says, I've been commanded to fight people. Who is he fighting? Who has he been commanded to fight? The entirety of mankind? What do you guys think?
No,
Then who?
the Arab tribes in that area.
Yes, yes, the Arabian Peninsula. The Arabian Peninsula does not have a choice whether to believe or not to believe. Once they're shown the miracle, they have to believe. Once they're shown a break, a miracle, a complete kharq al-ada that they can never replicate, and it's clear that Allah exists and that Allah sent a prophet, you either believe or you're destroyed. This is the sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with past nations. So either you believe or you're dominated by the believers, right? Or you have to leave. You have to get out of the Arabian Peninsula. And many of the idolaters of Arabia, they left, some of them, right? Most of them converted to Islam. So the Arabs don't have a choice because Allah, the Prophet ﷺ, he has been sent to that nation specifically with the miracle, right? But for the rest of humanity, right? There is they are the the ummatud dawah, we call it. Ummatud dawah. Okay? That they are the creation that you have to actually convince. You have to present the miracles, you have to present the evidence, and you have to basically let them choose to come into the fold of Islam. Okay, does that make sense? So this is how most of the scholars of Islam, in fact, all of them, the hadith commentators, have commented on the hadith, umirtu an uqatil nas. I've been commanded to fight the people. Okay? And the people here means the Arab tribes. And we do this all the time, right? When you can use a general word to mean something specific. As the Quran itself does, حتى يقول آه، آه، قال لهم الناس إن الناس قد جمعوا لكم فاخشاهم. When the people said, the people have gathered against you. So fear the people. Okay? Is it talking about it? Like, do you think the people means different things in the sentence? What do you guys think? The people said, the people have gathered against you. So fear the people, right?
Not
So
everyone.
first, it means different things, right? We're using a general word to mean something specific. It's somebody said, everyone has gathered against you. Is it literally everyone in whole human existence? No, it's just the Arab tribes, right? This is talking about the Battle of the Trench. So fear them. Fear who? All of the humanity? No. The those people that are outside your city. Okay. So same thing in the hadith. Same thing in the hadith. Right? The prophetic mission is to convert Arabia. Okay. So that makes sense to everyone? So we can't really use that hadith to like force convert people to Islam. And in Islamic history, as you know, the best religion with the record of forced conversions, right? That have not done forced conversions is Islam. This is like a fact of history. Uh, Stopped with this process. What do you mean by that specifically?
So basically, I'm assuming the Sahaba knew that's what it was in reference to as well, that it had to be only the
Yeah,
Arab tribes.
exactly.
But there's a point where, if you read the history, they started accepting, interactions with other people without the conversion. So how do they
Mhm.
know where that threshold was, where that point was to stop?
When they went to Persia and Egypt that met the Christians, people of other faiths, right? If they weren't
Yes.
Arab idolaters. So if they
Hmm.
weren't Arab idolaters, then they wouldn't force them to convert, right? Or to leave, or to completely just leave their area and just go somewhere else. They wouldn't do that. Because they were a different religion, right? When they went into Persia, they had a bit of a difficulty there because the Zoroastrians are not mentioned as people of the book. As you know, people of the book are Christians and Jews and Sabians, as we call them. They're protected category within the Muslim political system. Now, when they went into Persia, Zoroastrians weren't a protected category. So what Umar radiallahu anh, and I believe the rulers after him decided to do is to consider them also people of the book, right? They have a book, they have a religion, they have a religious tradition, so they're a protected class. And so what you see in Persia is Muslims they take over the cities, they don't intermingle, they don't intermix, they let Persian rulers rule their cities, right? The only difference is that Muslims trade. Muslims can go into your cities and trade with you, and they can talk to you about Islam, right? And if somebody decides to convert to Islam, you can't kill them, right? You can't say, oh, you're not following our tradition, kill them. Okay, so this is the effect of the Muslim conquest, and obviously, the Persians will pay a tax to the Muslim government to upkeep the armies that are there to protect them. Okay, so this is the nature of the Muslim conquest. So, and the Sahabas and the caliphs later on, this is really the intention of the conquest until about, like the Umayyad period where they're sort of trying to just expand the land and engage in more conquest because wealth is flowing in and stuff like that, right? But the intention of the Sahaba really is to create a political reality where dawah, you had freedom of speech to do dawah. This is really what it was, right? That, okay, us Muslims will come in. You owe us allegiance, right? You owe us allegiance. We'll protect you with our armies, right? You get to rule your cities, no problem. We get to talk about Islam, right? Now, if you're going to stop us from talking about Islam, we're going to fight. This is the nature of the early conquest, right? And it's a very unique thing in world history. And the most unique event I want to mention is that the um, the honesty of the Sahaba in upholding contracts. Okay, so Khalid ibn Walid, he has Damascus under siege. Okay, and Khalid ibn Walid is known to be a hothead. He's a general. He's a soldier. But either way, they're there's one group of warriors that have put Damascus under siege, and another group on the other side that's communicating with the ruler of Damascus to negotiate. Now, both of these factions are cut off from each other. They don't know what's going on. So Khalid ibn Walid is fighting through the city of Damascus, right? Taking house by house, fighting the soldiers, conquering the city. The other side, there's no fighting going on, and they agree on a truce. They say, okay, we surrender the city. Now, the weirdest thing happens is that they send the message to Khalid, and he immediately stops fighting and walks out of the city. I mean, if you can find me another situation, and this is recorded, I'm not making it up, right? If you can find me another situation in world history where this has happened, where a group of soldiers fighting tooth and nail, uh, conquering the city, and they just immediately stop and walk out, right? So, I mean, this is the nature of the companions of Islam, the followers of the Prophet ﷺ. Okay, so their conquest was purely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but other people's conquest after that, I mean, this is for power, for glory, whatever you want to call it, right? And we don't need to defend every single thing that Muslim civilization has done. Like, they were made up of, I mean, they were the most wealthiest civilization before modernity, right? So wealth does a lot of things to people, power does a lot of things to people. Okay, so we understand the difference between Nabi and Rasul. So once that's out of the way, let's talk about how the prophets come and what they actually give to humanity, right? Now, what is their main mission? Now, our Salafi brothers will tell you that the main mission of prophets, people already worship their Lord, right? Our Salafi brothers will tell you that people already have rububiyyah, tawheed al-rububiyyah. They acknowledge Allah as Rabb. All the Prophet comes to do is to say that you have to only worship Allah. Tawheed al-uluhiyyah. Remember, we talked about this in, I think, the second lecture. Okay? So we just have to correct their worship. This is why the prophets come. Our contention is that no, that this is not why the prophets come at all, because people don't have Tawheed al-Rububiyyah to begin with. If you're worshiping idols, there is no Tawheed al-Rububiyyah. So the prophets come, their mission is very broad. At the center of it is Tawheed, absolutely. But the mission is broader. Okay? As the Prophet says, عن أبي هريرة أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال this is أدب المفرد of Imam al-Bukhari إنما بعثت لأتمم صالح الأخلاق or إنما بعثت لأتمم مكارم الأخلاق that I've been sent only to lay the foundation of ethical character, right? Of moral character, of upright behavior. So this is the purpose of prophets. And the greatest part of ethical behavior we'll talk about includes tawheed. Okay, so this is a much broader view and not just this very limited view that the Salafi brothers propose. The broader view covers all the scenarios of what a prophet actually does. Okay, and what is this foundation of ethics, this foundation of moral conduct the prophets lift human beings up to accept? There's only two concepts, right? And one concept the Prophet ﷺ taught the companions in Mecca, the other concept the Prophet ﷺ taught the companions in Medina. And these two core ethical ideas. One is sidq, okay? Sidq, truthfulness, correct judgment, correct belief, right? And truthfulness includes under it Iman. If you're truthful, you understand the proofs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in nature, you believe in Allah, you will have Iman. This is rectifying your mind, rectifying your mind. And this is why the greatest companion in the Meccan phase, what's his nickname? Anyone? The greatest companion of the Prophet in the Meccan period of Islam.
Abu Bakr Siddiq.
Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. Right, good. So people say, well, Abu Bakr Siddiq, he has this truthfulness. He's called Siddiq because he sort of blindly believes in whatever people say about the Prophet. No, that's not true. The Abu Bakr Siddiq was one of actually one of the most cultured people of Meccan society, right? He would hold literature like poetry readings in his house, right? Like he would support people in need. So he was a very high cultured and intellectual person. We have this very like incorrect idea in our minds that the people that followed the Prophet in the Meccan period were the weak, the slave, the poor. Have you heard this before?
Yes.
Anyone? Yeah, so most of the followers of the Prophet in the Meccan period were the slave, the poor, they wanted justice. So that's why those people followed the Prophet because he was giving them rights, women and so on. Have you heard this? What do you guys think about this idea? Is it true? Anyone?
It's true only from the perspective that when you don't have anything, you're more open to certain things, so you're not distracted by certain things. But it doesn't necessarily correlate to their station or their
Okay.
financial strength or weakness. It's just what you can be an aesthetic and still have a lot of money. So it's literally a state
Mhm.
of open-mindedness.
Okay, let me ask it another way. The Meccans, the elite, they criticized the Prophet and said, only the scraps, the scum of the earth follow you. So you can't be on the truth.
No, they never said
Now,
that.
yeah, exactly. We can't accept that. First of all, that reasoning doesn't follow. But second of all, is it true that only the lower part of society were following the Prophet in Mecca? Is that fact true?
No, no, it's not.
Not at all. Who were the first Muslims?
The
Just
first
give
Muslim woman was like Khadija radiallahu
Khadija
anha, right?
radiallahu an.
And
Was
she
she
was
was she
very
the poor of
wealthy.
society?
No, she was very wealthy.
She was very wealthy, noble family. Who's another first Muslim? Just give me some names. I want to dispel this notion that, not that there's anything wrong with being poor or slave or anything. I'm not saying that, right? But just want to dispel this notion that, oh, the people that follow the Prophet, it's only because he was talking about human rights and this and that, right? It's not because there's something intrinsically irrational or it made sense to people. It was just so that they could get out of their bad situation. Who's another first Muslim? Anyone? We already said Abu Bakr radiallahu anh, who's one of the socialites and intellectuals of Arabia. He's the master of genealogies. So he's like the record keeper of the Arabs. So whenever they had a dispute over genealogy, they would go to him. He would hold literature and poetry readings in his house. He was a well-to-do, respected person in society. People respected him. They considered him incredibly intelligent, right? Anyone else? One of the early Muslims?
Hazrat Uthman radiallahu anhu.
Uthman radiallahu anh, the nobility of Quraysh, right? The Umayyad dynasty begins with Uthman radiallahu anh and assigning his family to, political positions. Well, who's his family? The Umayyad dynasty, right? He's from the nobility of Quraysh, absolute complete nobility. This is why in the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, who do they send to negotiate with Quraysh when they're outside Mecca, right? And then the Meccans won't let them enter. They're like, we need send one of you guys to negotiate with us. Who do they send?
Hazrat Uthman radiallahu anhu.
Uthman radiallahu anh, because he's from their blood, right? He's from their nobility. So this is a rational, very bright and royal human being. He's actually one of the most royal of the companions, the most filled with etiquette, right? Like he wouldn't like to he would always cover up, right? He would always dress in a state that's like, what do you call like dignified and so on and so forth, right? In the process, he was shy. The process recognized this in Uthman radiallahu anh. Another companion, Umar radiallahu anh. Okay? I mean, how are you going to say that Umar radiallahu anh was from the weak of society? He wasn't, right? How are you going to say he wasn't rational or he just wanted to escape his oppression? He didn't. He had power in Meccan society. He chose the Prophet, ﷺ, right? So in the Meccan period, the Prophet ﷺ was really trying to instill sidq, right? A proper understanding of reality, of worship of Allah, of belief in the hereafter, right? And the virtue of sidq instilling in their hearts, this proper belief, this proper sincerity. Okay? So, and from sidq, all these other virtues become good virtues. Okay? These are the core virtues, sidq and amana. Um, a proper truthfulness, right? Amana and responsibility. Why are they the core virtues? Because if you look at any virtue, let's say sabr, okay? Sabr. You can say sidqus sabr. Does he have true sabr? Meaning, does he have sabr for the sake of Allah? Or you can say amanatu sabr. Is he showing sabr at the correct time? Right? Same thing. Give me another virtue, anyone. I mean, they're on the screen, so right? Love, love. Does he have sidqul mahabba? Is his love with sidq? Is it true love? Love for the sake of Allah, right? Love and hate for the sake of Allah. Does he have amanatul mahabba? Does he show love at the proper time, right? Because if you just show love all the time, this is oppression, okay? Because sometimes you need to show mercy, sometimes you need to show generosity, sometimes you need to show firmness, right? So these two are the mother of all virtues, sidq and amana, because they apply to all the other virtues and they regulate them. Okay? You can think of a a giant circle, sidq and amana are on the outside and all the other virtues are inside. Okay? The prophets come to uplift mankind to have sidq and amana. If you teach any human being proper sidq and amana, all the other good virtues will come. You don't need to individually teach them Iman, Sabr, Karam, Rahma, justice, chastity, love. You don't need to teach all these things. If you just teach them truthfulness and responsibility, right? These two core concepts. So this is actually from Dr. Taha Abdul Rahman, who did an analysis of the philosophy of the Sirah. So I really like this, right? I think it's very convincing. What do you guys think? You guys heard this before or no? Um, Any ideas on this? Yeah, okay. Thumbs up. I need some approval. So the Meccan phase teaches Sidq. It's to do with belief. It's correcting the mind, correcting the intellect, right? Proper belief, Iman, having sabr for the sake of Allah, sincere for the sake of Allah. So you see the Meccan companions are the most sincere companions by far, right? They're with the Prophet from the beginning. And they go on to become leaders later in the seerah and even after the death of the Prophet ﷺ, the demise of the Prophet ﷺ. And then in the Medinan society, because the Muslims are now owning things, they rule land, they rule over people, they're making treaties, they're going to war. You need amana, how to deal with others, responsibility, right? Proper responsibility of seeing all the things that we have as gifts from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The first affirms Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and sincerity for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second affirms that everything that we have is not ours, it's Allah's. And how do we deal with knowing that fact? So these are the two core virtues that prophets come to teach humanity, right? How to operate with sidq and how to operate with amana. So now let's go to the miracles. We spoke about miracles a little bit, but let's give you guys a proper definition. Imam Sanusi, rahimahullah ta'ala, he says that a mu'jiza is amrun khariqun lil ada. It's an extraordinary event that breaks customary order, the customary order of things. Okay? So if things are falling down, they start falling up. If it's the customary nature of water to flow from rivers, now water is flowing from fingers. There's a miracle of the Prophet somewhere the Sahaba are suffering from thirst in the middle of a battle, and there are hundreds and hundreds of people around the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ puts his fingers into a well, right? And the water just starts flowing out, right? And every single person gets their drink, right? So this is a miracle that's reported by uh, um, a large number of Sahaba. Another miracle, I mean, usually like if you have food in a pot, the customary nature of things is you eat and then, you lick the pot clean, like the food ends. But the Prophet ﷺ fed the entire army of the Battle of the Trench from one pot, right? So I wish we had time to go into that story, but does anyone know that story?
Which
Anyone?
which one about the pot?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I forget the companion, but basically the Prophet had two stones tied on his stomach to show how hungry he was. So one of the companions, he came, he was complaining about hunger to the Prophet. He's like, oh, we're under siege. This is like, I'm so hungry, and I tied a stone to my stomach, right, to make it feel full. So the Prophet lifts up his shirt and says, look, I have two stones tied to my stomach, right, to show him that, look, I'm even more hungrier than you. So the Sahaba, he comes across some food and he goes in secret to the Prophet. He feels bad. So he's like, come over to my house. I have some food, right? So now the Sahaba thinks, okay, the Prophet is gonna come, right? But what does the Prophet do instead? He tells everyone, okay? So now the entire army, all these hundreds of people, they're coming to this house. And the Sahaba is freaking out. It's like, we don't have enough food, right? Everyone's gonna be mad. The Prophet says, look, just share the pot. Don't look inside. Just take the food. Don't look inside. The pot is passed around to every single person. Everyone eats their fill, right? So this is one of the miracles of the Battle of the Trench, right? Actually, in the Battle of the Trench, where Medina is under siege by the Meccans, there are many miracles that happen during that battle, right? So this is one of them, where because of the real difficulty of the situation, the Sahaba needed something to keep them going. And this seems to be the wisdom of showing those miracles at that time. I think so, yeah. I think it might have been Abu Hurairah, radiallahu anh. Yeah, I can't remember that. I didn't prepare that for this lecture. It just came to my mind. It could have been Abu Hurairah, radiallahu anh. Okay, so it breaks customary order, right? But now, just breaking customary order doesn't make it a miracle because saints do that all the time. Saints of Islam, they might have some miracle, they might read into your future, or they might, see a dream about you or like predict something about you. But this doesn't, okay, this is extraordinary, but what else? Okay, so the miracle has to come with a challenge. It has to come with a challenge, free from opposition, right? And meaning مقرون بالتحدي سالم عن المعارضة. سالم عن المعارضة means that it comes with a challenge and no one can meet that challenge, right? Here, I split the moon. Can you do it? No, right? And in principle, you can't do it. Uh, Water flowing from my fingers. Can you do it? No, right? In principle, you can't do it. So it comes with a challenge. What is the challenge? Prove me wrong that this is not a miracle and I don't speak about God. This is the challenge, right? If you fail the challenge, then I'm a prophet. Okay? I'm a prophet. So this is what a miracle is supposed to do, a mu'jiza. And يظهر على يد مدعي النبوة تصديقا له, that it appears at the hand of one who claims prophethood as a confirmation of his truthfulness. So, um, important idea about miracles is that who can actually get miracles? Who can actually get a mu'jiza? Now, if a person claims to be God and they get certain miracles, let's say, they're not miracles, they're called istidraj. They're used for punishment to delude them even more, right? But if they get a something like that, do you think a rational person would accept that this person is God? A rational person, right? Someone that's not driven by their emotion and like, oh, this guy's amazing. No. Like, if let's say, for example, Pharaoh, he claims to be God, the ruler of the heavens and the earth. Na'udhu billah. And let's say he has a miracle. And there's some miracles reported from Pharaoh, which is that his horse's leg would rise and shrink, right? He wouldn't need to climb over to his horse. His horse's legs would shrink and he would just go on, right? And no sickness ever befell him in his entire life, right? Things like this. So do you think that would prove his claim that he is God? Or Isa alayhi salam, rising people from the dead. Would this make him God? What do you think?
No.
No, it still doesn't meet, the things we talked about. But
Yeah, exactly.
great.
Because as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, Isa alayhi salam and his mother ate food. They're contingent beings. So if someone claims godhood and they're doing miracles, it doesn't matter, right? A rational person will be able to see through that. How are you God? You're gonna die, right? You were born and then you're gonna die. So how is it possible that you're the ruler of the universe? That makes no sense. So a miracle, some type of karamat can appear at the hands of a person falsely claiming to be God. This is not an issue, right? And it's that miracle might be used to punish them, to misguide them even further, right? But a miracle cannot appear at the hands of a liar, of an untrustworthy person. Okay? A true miracle, a mu'jiza, something that cannot be replicated by anyone. I'm not talking about magic or black magic, something which has a science to it, using the jinns to make something, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, you will not be able to reproduce the Quran, وَلَوْ كَانَ بَعْضُهُمْ لِبَعْضٍ ظَهِيرًا. Even if mankind and jinn gathered together to assist in making a Quran, you will not be able to reproduce it. Okay? So a miracle is unreproducible. It's completely unique. And this can only appear, like we mentioned, sidq and amana, it can only appear at the hands of one who has perfected sidq and perfected amana. Right? Must. Must. Or else there's no way to tell if he's lying or truthful. There's no way to tell truth from falsehood. Okay? So, and this is why the prophets are they're ma'asum. They're ma'asum. They're protected by Allah, divine protection from ethical failing, which means that regardless of the difficulty of the situation, a prophet's heart is always guided to do what is right. Okay? And even if they might lean towards something wrong, Allah protects them. Right? As we have a story from the childhood of the Prophet, the Meccans would go and party and they would drink and do this and that. And the people in the Prophet's age at the time, they were going and doing these things. The Prophet would always avoid it. And then one day he's like, like I wonder what happens over there, just out of curiosity, not because he wants to do sin. And as soon as he has that thought, and he's like he wants to sort of check out what's going on over there, what people find fun, he he faints and goes to sleep, right? So, and then from this he realizes, you know what? This is probably pretty bad, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protects the prophets from any type of sin. So this is why prophets are divinely protected from sin. So this is something, a very important part of Islam we have to believe. Okay? And a lot of people today, they speak about prophets in very derogatory and um, weird ways that seem to indicate, right? Like, for example, Surah Al-Abasa. Have you heard this? Where people say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is rebuking the Prophet ﷺ and telling him, why did you not, why did you ignore this blind man and when you're giving dawah to the elites of Mecca? They make it seem as if the Prophet ﷺ is doing some sin, right? And they use language that is very unbefitting to the Prophet ﷺ. What the Prophet did is merely choosing a lesser good over a greater good. That's it. Both of the things that he did was good. It's called khilaf al-awla, right? It's a breach, tiny breach of adab, which is absolutely justified given the circumstance. If you're speaking, trying to convince, there are presidents in the room, right? There are elite people in the room, and you're trying to convince them, you're trying to get them on your side, and this person walks in and asks you like a random question. What are you gonna do? You're gonna like say, hold on, let me just cut this conversation short and talk to this guy. Are you gonna do that? What do you guys think? Exactly. A plus versus A grade. So the relationship that Allah has with His Prophet is not the relationship that we have with the Prophet. Allah can correct the Prophet. We can't, right? The Prophet did not commit a sin. It's Allah using that as a lesson for His ummah, to show the truthfulness and the high level of the Prophet. Okay, so this we should not try to communicate this as like something awful that the Prophet did, emotional, spiritual abuse. This is complete nonsense, and it can even lead to kufr in the way that we speak about the Prophet. We have to be very careful, right? And prophets are protected from ethical failings. And Allah says in the Quran, Wallahu ya'asimuka minan nas. Allah will protect you from people. Allah will protect you from the harm that people will cause you. Um, okay, so we don't have much time, 12:07. Okay, I'll quickly get through this, inshallah. So now let's talk about the different arenas of mu'jizat, the miracles of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that prove his prophethood. There are many aspects of these miracles. And remember, a miracle, we said, is something that cannot be recreated. It breaks the customary order of things, coupled with a challenge, right? Prove me wrong. I did this, prove me wrong. If you can't prove me wrong, you have to accept that Allah exists, that I am the messenger. Okay? So this is the challenge. So one of the mu'jizats, the greatest mu'jiza, is the mu'jiza of the Quran. So we're not going to talk about the splitting of the moon and this and that. I mean, these things are much more local in nature, okay? And even for the splitting of the moon, it doesn't have to be a literal splitting, right? If I can show you that the moon, the two halves of the moon are on two sides of the sky right now, no one can repeat it, whether it's a literal splitting or some vision that they're shown. I mean, it doesn't, it's kind of irrelevant to the point. The point is that here's something that you're seeing. You can't recreate it. I can, right? I'm telling the truth. What's an indication that I'm a messenger of God? Here, look into the sky. Moons are on the two sides of the hemisphere. Can you do that? No, but I can, right? So I'm being truthful. You guys understand? So the details on how exactly the moon was split, was it a vision? Was it like, can you find a crater on the moon today? Like, if that's completely irrelevant. Okay? All of that is completely irrelevant. Um, But the greatest miracle of the Prophet is the Quran. It has to be the Quran. So we don't need to talk about any of the other miracles of the Prophet, even though they're very, very well established, right? We have very strong hadiths from Sahih Bukhari of remember mutawatir narrations, right? Qat'i narrations, right? Where so many people saw it that it would be foolish to think that this was sort of conspired. Okay? But we're not going to talk about any of that. We're going to just simply talk about his greatest miracle, which is the Quran. So there are different ways of looking at this miracle of the Quran. Everyone following me so far? Any questions before we get to this next section? Thumbs up. Okay. All right. So we can approach the miracle of the Quran from different perspectives. Um, the first is the linguistic miracle. Second, the legislative miracle, the miracle of Islamic law, okay, and what its effect on human society after the Prophet. And the third is the circumstantial miracle. This is what I call the circumstantial miracles, which are the prophecies of the Quran and also the circumstances of some of the verses that were revealed that show that you're kind of reaching if you say that the Prophet is the author of the Quran, because all of the regular human emotions and motivations are suddenly sort of thrown out because of the situation, right? Like the verse is talking about something that if the Prophet wrote it, from what we know about leaders, people in history, spiritual leaders, whatever, people in power, there's no way that this piece of information would come out. And in fact, this piece of information would make him look bad. Do you guys understand what I'm saying? And it would actually defeat the supposed propaganda that he's trying to give to people, right? So this is what we call this circumstantial miracle. So let's look at the linguistic miracle of the Quran. Now, the challenge and the miracle, the linguistic miracle, the challenge is open, right? But do you think this miracle has happened or uh, continues to happen? What do you think? The linguistic miracle of the Quran. Has it already happened or is it something that continues to happen? Like, can we access this miracle today? That's what I'm saying.
Continues to happen.
Continues to happen. Good. But what if you say that uh, that how can we access this miracle unless like what kind of miracle is it if you need to study 10 years of Arabic rhetoric, right? And grammar and things of that nature, which I'm trying to I'm in the process of doing, but I'm nowhere near done. Complete beginner. So how is it possible that this would be a miracle to mankind if you have to go through all those hoops to get there? I mean, it doesn't seem to be like a mu'jiza, like something that is so direct and clear, right? So that's an issue that we have. So how do we answer this? Any thoughts? Like I mean, Allah revealed the Quran in Arabic. Most of humanity don't speak Arabic. So how could this be used as a miracle? I mean, if I say the Quran is a miracle, you're kind of taking my word for it, aren't you? Okay, so Brother Abdul Razak said it already happened and it continues, and that's the correct answer. So whether or not you speak Arabic or even you know a lick of the words of the Quran, this miracle is a miracle of history that has already happened. The seals, like the ink has dried, it's done and dusted. Okay? It's done and dusted. And the Quran is the supreme book of Arabic literature. Supreme. And this and the reason I say that is because it would be like if you come into a society where language is at its absolute height, where literature is at its absolute height, where the greatest figures of that language are living. Okay, they're living, they're your contemporaries. And then you come along and you produce something that silences everyone by their own admission, not by you, not, like or Tupac or whoever, like they say, oh, my rap is the best rap or whatever. No, no, no. They say it, okay? And then they're like, okay, you know what? We need to retire from doing literature because you're so good. Okay? So what would you say? Would that prove the point that what you produced is a miracle? 100%. Okay? This is exactly what happened with the Quran. The Arabs were so stunned by the Quran that the great Arab poets, three of them were alive during the time of the Prophet. We have what's called the greatest Arabic poems, the Mu'allaqat, right? They're the poems that were so good, they had such fire, such bars, I don't know how you want to describe them. They were hung on the Kaaba. Okay? In Arab society, their form of entertainment and their form of media and public speech, it was poetry battle. It was rap battles. This is literally what it was. Okay? Rap battles. People would gather together, they would push their tribe's rapper into the fray, and the other guy would push their into the fray, and he would say, your tribe, you got your coconuts are really bad or whatever, and then your lineage is like this, and I'm from Boston and I grew up in the Bronx. What just read the rap lyrics of today. If you if you look at the rap lyrics of uh of 7th century Arabia, lot of similarities, man. Right? The most famous poem of Imrul Qais, which is the great crowning poem achievement of Arabic literature, right? At that time, I'm saying pre-Islamic, literally, come, let's talk about a lost love that I met in this area of the desert between these two sand dunes, right? And on that day, like we were having some tea and this and that, and I saw this girl, and this literally, you pull up rap lyrics from 2025, back in the Bronx, we used to do this, right? And then 695, the zip code, right? Same exact. Same exact thing, right? So these rap battles were happening, and there were many types of poetry the Arabs engaged in. The Quran came and silenced all of them to the point that Labid, one of the great poets, one of these great poets, he heard the Quran and he said, okay, I retire from poetry. From today, I retire from poetry. This is literally what he said. Okay? Another one of the enemies of the Prophet, Walid ibn Mughira, who was also one of the great poets of Mecca. He's an enemy. He fought the Prophet. He went to negotiate with the Prophet to, it's like, look, stop preaching Islam, you know, get along, I'll give you money, this and that. The Prophet recited the Quran to him. He was awestruck and he went back to his people. And they said, this is just magic. This is just, and he stops them. He says, no, 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 no. What does he say here? Right? By Allah, his speech has sweetness. It is adorned with beauty. Its highest part is fruitful, its lowest part abundant, and it is not the speech of man. Right? It is not the speech of man. And the Quran describes Walid ibn Mughira. We know this from Khalid ibn Walid, right? Khalid ibn Walid is the son of whom? This guy, right? Who fought the Prophet ﷺ. And in Surah An-Najm, it describes this man who is affected by the Quran. He knows what poetry is, just like the magicians of Pharaoh. They know what magic is. They know how to do the sleights of hands. And when they see the actual snake from Musa alayhi salam, his staff being transformed, they realize it's a miracle, right? Same thing here. Walid ibn Mughira realizes, okay, this is not regular poetry. This is not something that we don't know that the Prophet ﷺ was a poet. He never had a poetic education. Yeah, every single Arab at the time, they knew poetry, this and that, but this is completely unexpected. Uh, he wanders around in his house and then he thinks, like, what should I say? Is he a madman? No, a madman can't produce this. Is he is this like human speech? No, it can't be human speech. You know what? You know what? It's probably magic, right? He convinces himself that it's magic because he doesn't want to contradict his people, right? He knows it's true, but he just insults it as magic. right? And this is why the Quran promises him hellfire. So when Khalid radiallahu anh became Muslim, he had to read these verses. So these verses are about whom? إنه فكر وقدر فقتل كيف قدر ثم قتل كيف قدر in Surah Al-Najm. These verses are about whom? His dad, right? So one of the and this is why the Sahabas were the greatest generation, right? It was very hard on him. He read these verses and he accepted them, right? That yeah, can you imagine like you're reading verses in your prayer and they're about your father, that he's destined for hell, right? And this is what happened with some of the children of Abu Lahab. Um, many of the children of Abu Lahab, do you guys know, did they were they idolaters or did they become Muslim? What do you guys think?
They became Muslim.
They all became Muslim. So can you imagine being a child of Abu Lahab having to read Tabbat yada Abi Lahabin wa tab in your prayer, right? It's about your dad. Okay, he's going to be in the hellfire, right? So you can see the sincerity of the Sahaba that they accepted this. That no matter what happens, the truth is the truth, right? You must accept it. So the miracle of the Quran, it's part historic. The greatest Arabic literati has already put the Quran as something that they cannot replicate, right? They cannot replicate it. They themselves admitted it. So this proves the miracle already. We don't need to prove anything else. You don't need to know Arabic. You don't need to know balagha, this and that, right? That much is cemented by the miracle of the Quran. And this is something that no one can deny. Okay? So this is the linguistic miracle of the Quran. Of course, we can give you many examples and so on and so forth from Arabic grammar and stuff like that, but that historical piece is the keyest, it's the most important part. Okay, let's look at the legislative miracle of the Quran. Now, when the Prophet came to Arabia, it was a lawless society. It was a lawless society. There was no such thing as the rule of law. It was gang violence. Okay? You kill one of my people, I kill one of yours. Right? In fact, there was even a law where if you killed a noble person, okay, you would have to offer up a noble person to be killed. Okay? So, so sorry, you would have to offer up, like, let's say I killed, I'm from my tribe and I killed a noble person from another tribe. Okay, so my tribe doesn't want to kill one of their noble people, right? So let's say I'm a noble person, I killed some guy from this opposing tribe, some random dude. Now, my tribe does not want me killed, okay? Because I'm a noble person, I'm part of the ruling class. So what do? They pick a random dude from the lowest rung of society and offer that up. Okay, okay, you guys, we killed one of yours. Here's one. Here's some dude or two, three people. Go kill them. This was their justice. Okay. And the Arabs would also, some of the Arabs would bury their daughters alive, right? Because you can imagine in the harsh nature of the desert, having a daughter isn't an economically viable thing to do, right? You'd have to feed them. If they got married, you don't really get any benefit out of that because they're now in the Jahili culture, the property of their husband. They don't have very much rights. So having a daughter seemed, I mean, this was not a good economic idea, right? To survive in the desert. So many Arabs would bury the daughter, right? They would kill the daughter, infanticide. So there was this chaos in Arabian society. After the revelation of the Quran, within 23 years, the Arabs are builders of empire, right? They're builders of empire. The rule of law is all over the empire, right? People are going to judges, people are going to qadis, random people from the lower class, slaves, right? Former slaves. They're studying and creating Islamic law, okay? Marxists tell us, communists tell us that law is always the function of power. The powerful first take power with violence, and then they create a law to justify the violence and to justify the rulingship. This is what happened in the United States with slavery. This is what happened in Europe. This is what happened everywhere. The only exception I can think of is Islamic society. Because who created the laws, the Sharia, right? That derived all of the ahkam, the legal rulings. Who were the people that were doing this? Was it the powerful, or was it like, the homeless kid in Mecca that his mother made sure he dressed nice with a turban to attend the gatherings of hadith? Imam Shafi'i, literally living on the streets. Who is creating the law? What do you guys think? The people in power with the swords, or the scholars and the saints? It's it's these people from these lower classes, right? So you have this amazing miracle, kharqan lil aada, right? A complete break of how we would think a society should work, and it's like former slaves. It's like, oh, this homeless kid, right? Somehow he becomes the greatest, source of Islamic law of his time, Imam Shafi, Imam Abu Hanifa, this cloth seller, right? That he, at the age of 40, he decides to go and study, and he creates this institution to produce judges left and right, and his students go on to become the chief Qadi of Baghdad, right? Abu Yusuf, rahimahullah ta'ala, he was from a poor family. Imam Abu Hanifa says, look, this kid is brilliant, give him to me, right? I'll pay for everything. Okay. Imam Muhammad, right? All these people, they become judges in the empire. They set up courts. They enforce the law. There's rule of law. People are getting justice, right? So this is a miracle by itself that within 23 years, such backward people became a world civilization. So this is itself is a miracle. Okay. And people will say, like, for example, we see this in other times where nomadic people come and conquer a, an empire, and then they rule the empire like it used to be before, right? So what's the difference with the Arabs? The difference is the Arabs did not adopt the institutions of Persia and Rome. They had Sharia, they had the Quran. So this is the legislative miracle of the Quran. They created an entirely new system. Okay. Um, okay. And the last piece, circumstantial miracle. Okay. So I want to end, I don't want to keep you guys for too long. The last piece is the prophecies of the Quran. Now, there are many, many prophecies of the Prophet, some which we won't go into, but that's to prove his prophethood. Remember, we're talking about just the Quran, which is the chief miracle. That's why we're looking at the prophecies in the Quran. Um, there are things mentioned in the Quran that should not be possible for the Prophet to know. Okay, and just this seem like much more than a coincidence. When there are 6,000 coincidences, it's not a coincidence. Okay, that's what we call a data set, right? When Nostradamus makes like a vague prophecy and it somehow comes true, that's a coincidence. But when you have like 200 data points and they all come true, that's not a coincidence. Okay, that's prophecy. So the first prophecy is Tabbat yada Abi Lahabin wa tab, that may the hands of Abu Lahab, the uncle of the Prophet, ﷺ, be destroyed. And that surah that we read in the Quran, that's discouraging arrogance and showing the end result of arrogance, it tells us that Abu Lahab is in the hellfire. Okay, and that he's never going to believe. Now, this surah was revealed in Mecca, right? When Abu Lahab, he humiliated the Prophet ﷺ in front of all of the elites of Mecca. Okay? So it all Abu Lahab had to do to prove that the Quran was false was what?
A Muslim.
To become Muslim. Even if it was fake, even if it was fake, he could have just said, "Oh yeah, yeah, sure, I'll become Muslim." What about the Quran now? He could have just said that. Abu Lahab dies a kafir. He dies a disbeliever. He never accepts Islam. His entire family becomes Muslim. He doesn't become Muslim. This is one of the miracles of the Quran, right? Another miracle of the Quran is we find um, غُلِبَتِ الروم. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala predicts the victory of the Romans against the Persians. And at this time, the Byzantine Empire was so weak, right? The Byzantine is Rome, right? It's the same exact thing in world history. Um, they were so weak that the Persians, they defeated them near in a battle near the Dead Sea, and they went into the capital of Rome. They burned it down. They took over the Egyptian province. I mean, it is basically, and there was complete chaos in the political system. The Caesar got assassinated, and the guy to replace him got assassinated, and it was just chaos. Okay, so at that point, it looked like the Roman Empire was about to be, it was done, right? Because Egypt is, if you know anything about the Roman Empire, Egypt is the richest province. This is where all the food came from. This is where all the supplies came from. Uh, and so was northern Syria, right? That area of Sham. So if you took this area, I mean, you're toast, okay? And then the Persians marched into Anatolia. So the only thing that was there was a tiny bit of the Roman province. That's it. And in this situation, the Meccans were really, they were celebrating the Persians. And in this situation, the Quran comes and says, غُلِبَتِ الروم. Rome has already won, right? في أدنى الأرض وهم من بعد غلبهم سيغلبون, right? That in the future, Rome is going to defeat the Persians, right? في بضع سنين, between 3 to 9 years, right? بضع سنين is a expression in Arabic that refers to 3 to 9, right? لله الأمر من قبل ومن بعد ويومئذ يفرح المؤمنون. And to Allah belongs the complete matter, and on that day that the Romans beat the Persians, the believers will rejoice. And you know what happened? What do you think happened? Anyone? Did the Romans beat the Persians? The
Yes.
Romans absolutely trashed the Persians to the point Heraclius, this new Roman emperor who comes into power somehow through some trickery, the Persian emperor and his armies, they laid siege to Byzantium. So the city was under siege. Okay, they're nowhere to go. Heraclius somehow sneaks out with his army, right? His army wasn't even near the Roman Empire. He crosses, the Caucasus Mountains and goes into Azerbaijan and somehow comes into Persia and marches on the Persian capital and burns it down, destroys the entire Persian capital. And at that point, the Persian troops they lose all their morale, and the Romans take over Persia, absolute, destroys the Persian army, and they're back in power, right? And this happens in Medina. This happens during the Medinan period. Abu Bakr radiallahu anh, when this verse was revealed, he made a bet. Bets are haram in Islam, but at that point it wasn't, right? So he made a bet. He said, I swear to God that this is going to happen within 3 to 9 years. And I bet, I think 1,000 camels or 100 camels. I can't remember. Right. So some disbeliever in Quraysh took on the bet. He's like, yeah, yeah, of course. Right. It's like saying, like, if I said to you, um, who's like the really best soccer team in the world today, or the best football team? I don't know sports right now. Okay, let's say Argentina. Okay, they won the last World Cup. And then I say somebody gives me information that okay, the next year Bangladesh, who never qualified for the World Cup, that team is going to beat Argentina. Okay, and then I take a bet. I bet $1 million it's going to happen. Now, what would you bet? Just be rational for a second. What would you bet? Would you take the bet? Bangladesh
For
has
sure.
never qualified for the World Cup, has never even passed the group stages of the Asian, right? So I say Bangladesh is going to beat Argentina. Faraz is definitely taking the bet because that's free $1 million. That's just a free money. Okay? So this is how the bet was at that point. Abu Bakr radiallahu anh took the bet. He believed in the Quran, he took the bet. And guess what? The Romans beat the Persians. And when he was in Medina, he called up his debts. Okay? He forced that guy to pay. Okay? He sent the message to Mecca. He's like, hey, remember the debt? Right? Remember the bet? I won. Pay up. And he got all the camels. Okay? So this is how he got rich, right? Um, so anyway, this is one of the prophecies of the Quran. Another one, interesting one is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Fath, هو الذي أرسل رسوله بالهدى. He's the one who sent the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his Rasul, with guidance. ودين الحق, the true religion. ليظهره على الدين كله. To outshine all the other religions completely. Right? وَكَفَى بِاللَّهِ شَهِيدًا. And Allah is the only witness that you need. I'll end this presentation just by saying that when Islam expanded during the Islamic conquests, Islam, the political system of Islam, took over the centers of the world's greatest religions. Where was the center of Christianity during the 7th century, the 8th century? Does anyone know? Was it Rome? The center, the heart of Christianity. Anyone? Just guess, just give me some names.
Constantinople?
No. It would seem that way, but it was in the Byzantine Empire, yeah, but it wasn't Constantinople. The heart of Christianity was in Syria and North Africa. This is the heart. Where is St. Augustine from? He's from freaking Tunisia, right? St. Augustine, right? So, where's the Coptics, right? These famous Christian saints, they're all from Damascus. They're from Damascus, Syria, Egypt, North Africa, parts of Algeria today, Morocco. This is where they were from. Yeah. And Spain as well. The Visigoths, the what's his name? The Boethius, right? The author of the Consolations of Philosophy, right? Boethius was one of the most important Christian figures. So the center of Christianity, Iberia, North Africa, Syria, right? Parts of Iraq for Nestorian Christianity, all comes under the rule of Islam. And the center of Christianity completely shifts after that, right? لِيُظْهِرَهُ عَلَى الدِّينِ كُلِّهِ. The major religions, boom. What was the center of Judaism? Does anyone know? The obvious place at the time? Jerusalem.
Palestine?
Yeah,
Jerusalem.
Palestine. And guess what? Muslims conquer Palestine, right? Actually, Heraclius gave an order to kill all Jews, right? I didn't say that. The Byzantine emperor said that, right? Just to make it clear for if the FBI is listening, right? And the Muslims arrived just in time, right? They defeat Heraclius's armies and they save all the Jews. The Muslims save all the Jews. Okay? I want to repeat that. The Muslims arrive just in time before Heraclius's army arrives to kill all the Jews, and they save all the Jews, right? Umar radiallahu anh walks into Jerusalem. The Jewish patriarch, right, welcomes him and says praise about him till this day. If you find in people like Maimonides and these other classical Jewish figures speaking highly of the Sahaba, right? They love Imam Ghazali. They call him the great saint, the great sheikh. They talk about Umar radiallahu anh. These are classical Jewish authors, right? Very odd, I know, but again, لِيُظْهِرَهُ عَلَى الدِّينِ كُلِّهِ, to overshadow all their religions. Where was the center of Buddhism? Do you guys know? At the time, 8th century.
India, right?
No. This is something very counterintuitive. So where was, those two giant Buddha statues? Where were they?
Afghanistan.
Yeah. So the center of Buddhism during the 8th to 9th century was Afghanistan and Khorasan, that area. In fact, much of the royalty of the Abbasids, they were ex-Buddhists. They were Buddhists that had converted to Islam. They were called the Buyids, right? The Buyids that ran much of the administration of the Abbasids. And Imam Maturidi of the Maturidi Aqidah school, which I personally am affiliated to with the Hanafi school, most of their argumentation and theology were debating Buddhist scholars, right? And again, the same thing. Islam overshadowed Buddhism in that area completely, right? So now Buddhism had to move to China, it had to move to Japan, it had to gain more influence in India, and so on and so forth, right? لِيُظْهِرَهُ عَلَى الدِّينِ كُلِّهِ. Where was the center of Zoroastrianism? Same thing. Zoroastrianism was no longer a thing. Okay, it got wiped out. Not because of forced conversion, but because the Zoroastrian religion, it relied on tremendous amounts of oppression to keep the belief going, right? Once the kings and the elites were dispatched with, the regular Persian people, there's a mass conversion to Islam, right? Because they're being taken out of the chains and shackles of this type of slavery of existence that they were living under in the Persian Empire. So again, I would argue that this prophecy, it came true, right? It came true, and it came true in the most beautiful way. And another way that it comes true is that wherever Islam goes, whichever culture it goes into, it shines, right? Maybe not in the modern world, right? Because maybe Muslims have lost touch with how to do that. Uh, we need to regain that. But wherever Islam goes in the world, it goes to the Java Islands, it shines. People convert to Islam, right? It's able to integrate with the local culture. It goes to China, one of the oldest masjids in the world. Where is it located? Do you guys know? It's in China. And they call it the tomb of Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas radiallahu anh, from the 7th century. That mosque is from the 7th century in Guangzhou province in China, right? Southern China. Islam goes to China, there it lasts there for almost 1300 years, right? Islam in China is as old, is way older than Islam in the subcontinent, and Islam even in Persia. I mean, just think about how crazy that is, right? And many famous generals and many famous advisors to, the Emperor of China, they were Muslim. There was a great naval fleet commander that were Muslim. Many, many famous people in Chinese history that are actually Muslim. Okay. And also the Mongol Empire, yes, Genghis Khan wasn't Muslim, but many of his generals, can surprise, they were what? They were Muslim. I'm sorry to burst your bubble, right? Many Muslims allied with Genghis Khan in the steppe, and the Sharia was a recognized legal system under Genghis Khan. And finally, when the Turks do convert en masse, right, because they really love the Muslims, they were treated respectfully by them, they're sort of a warrior class. When the Turks come into Islam en masse, they form their own empire, right? So these Turks have absolutely nothing to do with the Arabs. There's almost no comparison. Yet somehow Islam flourishes among the Turks as well. And Islam flourishes among the Berbers in North Africa, and among the Iberians, and among the Africans, and among every single place Islam goes, it's able to flourish and provide a complete integration with reality, right? So this is one of the miracles of Islam. Christianity is not able to do this, right? Christianity gets wiped out in China very early, right? Because I don't know for what reason, right? And Japan as well. One of the reasons is that Christians always came with colonial intentions, whereas Muslims just came to trade. Muslims are like, hey, we got some cool stuff. You guys want to buy some cool stuff? They're like, yes. Hey, you want to learn what we do? You want to understand our belief? They're like, oh, okay, sure. Right? And then trade happens, they go back. Christians always come with, unfortunately, with, the canon. So Christian missionary work was not very successful in many parts of the world. Okay, so with that, I want to talk about the circumstantial miracle. Maybe we'll touch on it next week or the week after that very shortly. But with that, inshallah, we'll end class. I don't want to keep you guys too late. وصلى اللهم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. Hope you guys enjoyed the class. If you have any questions, I have like a couple minutes.
Alhamdulillah, great information. Sheikh, I was tickled pink thinking that rap was not recently discovered.
Oh, no. Rap is as old as humanity. Trust me.
Right? I'm like, wow. Wait till I let my nephews know that.
It's so funny. If you classical Arabic poems, there's an entire category of poem called like it's called the diss. It's literally the diss. Like
Yes.
you're dissing somebody, you're dissing your parents, their
Mhm.
tribe. You guys eat this, we don't eat that. You guys are like this, we're not like that. Literally, there's a entire genre of classical Arabic poetry.
Wow.
Exact same thing, right? This is why
Amazing.
we say that that type of culture, like that glorifies sort of honor and like in a toxic way, this is why we say it's jahiliyyah, right? It's a culture of ignorance that it's been there, it'll continue there. It's not something new that hip hop invented or stuff like that, right? But hip hop can be used for good, just like the Quran came out of that landscape. Sure, there can be a genre of hip hop that has positive themes and things like that, right? So it's not necessarily
Right.
have to
That's
do,
it.
yeah. So
Yeah, but thank you for that
yes, yeah.
information.
Okay, inshallah, I'll see you guys next week or 2 weeks later. So,
Inshallah. Jazakallah khair.
jazakallah khair.
Inshallah. Have a great week, everybody. Inshallah.
Yeah, have a great
Assalamu
one.
alaikum wa
Enjoy your day.
rahmatullah.